Hello and welcome to part 2 of our Devy breakdown. I've got Shaw and me again. He's breaking them down. He's not in the league, so he's very impartial.
Yeah, well, I like to try and be as fair as I can with any league, but particularly it's easier when you're not involved in the league. You can be honest about it. And it's been an interesting ride so far. Some very interesting teams. I'm sure I'll get a lot of heat on here. There's no harm.
That's fine by me. I mean, if you haven't seen part 1, go back and watch that first, because we explain what a Devy League is and why it's different to a normal sort
of Devy, if you think a team is better than I'm saying, or you think a team is weaker than I'm saying, then please do tell us why, because we do love those kind of input information. If sometimes people pick things out that we say, yeah, great point, and we go forward from here with your new information as part of our Bible for drafting. Do not worry, we take everything on board realistically and fairly.
Okay.
So let's have a look.
Yeah, this is Dan, our very own Dan A.
Yeah,
he's one of 3 Dans in the league. There's always plenty of Dans in our league. Everyone seems to be called Dan. So we're on to Devy's out. He's got He's got sort of young quarterbacks really. Sam Darnold, Tua Tagovailoa, and
sorry to say it straight away to Dan, because I do like Dan. Those are the 3 weakest quarterbacks so far. It's the weakest group of the lot.
I don't think that would be lost on him. Obviously,
yeah,
he's building a team for the future, I guess, looking at those. Sam Darnold could take a step forward. Haskins could take a step forward. And Tua, you're a big fan of Tua, though, aren't you? He's a left-handed thrower, which is a bit different.
Yeah, in the short term, the issue is going to be for Tua is that he plays the game a certain way, which is fantastic, but there's a reason he got injured and has had previous injuries. His time in the NFL could be really short, and it really could. So you need to factor that in. And when we normally look at quarterbacks, we look at long careers, 10 years plus, 11, 12 years. These could be really short. So my advice is, being honest, it's going to kill the advice here because everybody will know. But if he has 1 or 2 great years, brilliant, trade on him and trade early, because as much as you might miss out on 1 good year, honestly, he's high risk. There's some serious question marks. But it's okay, those quarterbacks, but I think anybody looking at them is going to be honest and say, look, Dwayne Haskins got it all to prove. It's long road up. Sam Darnold has got the microscope starting to turn on him. It's a tricky list, and as you say, I'm sure it's not lost on him. But he must benefit elsewhere, and I'm just looking at his running backs.
Okay, yeah. So he's got Bijan Robinson, who's like a Devy player. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott and Devin Singletary look the stars of his running back core there. Penny was very cheap. Dare would have been free agency, I guess, and Gus maybe free agency. So
it lacks depth. It really worries me, particularly in a league where you can start quite a few players. I presume he's going to make up for that in his wide receivers, but it does concern me. I think he's obviously looking at his list. Yeah, I think, without putting words in his mouth, it probably looks like he's just looking to try and start 2 running backs with the focus on his wide receivers, which in a full-point PPR has a lot of sense and merit to it. I just wish he had 1 or 2 behind the 2 starters where I felt comfortable that they were going to do something for this season. I think he could contribute. It's a little bit of a house of cards at running back. 1 injury to any player, and suddenly that can look very, very weak. So far, I've got to be honest. I'm not seeing it yet. Where I feel.
I guess he's probably a bit like me. Whereas if he doesn't do anything year 1, he's got a young team that's all going to improve and all come together, and he'll have a nice pick next year.
Well, we can look whether it's all made
Well, you have
up
a look at his wide receivers. I mean, George Pickens and Seth Williams, 2 nice wide receivers for the future there. But he's also got. I mean, look. Let's have a look. Let's have a look who he got.
Well, he has done well there, actually. I'll tell you why. Right. So out of those 2 that he's picked up there, right. I will say this now. But one of those, I think, is a real future star. So I like that thinking a lot. And that may not be high on everybody's radar, but I really like his thinking on those 2 guys. One of those is a real potential superstar.
So which one is it that you like?
I actually like Seth Williams.
Yeah. I was very... he was on my radar as well, but Dan...
I really do. I will see more during this year, because obviously it's hard when you're talking Devy, you're having to project ahead, and that's sometimes very difficult, particularly with you're looking, quite a long way out. But I do like what I see, and he's already high on my radar, and he's ticking all the right boxes. So just straight away, I think, yeah, okay, like that for the potential for later. So let's look at that now.
He's got a lot of potential. So Arcega-Whiteside could take a step forward. Isabella could take a step forward. We lost Jalen Hurd last year for San Francisco, but with the news that Debo's out, he's certainly in the hunt to actually come and get some targets this year. Devon Funches could be Green Bay's wide receiver too. Who knows with him? Michael Gallup, still a very talented player. DeAndre Hopkins obviously needs no introduction.
Yeah.
He's got the very exciting Henry Ruggs and Brian Edwards for the Raiders.
Yeah, but he's got AJ Brown and he's got Marquise Brown. So his wide receivers.
So I was leaving them to last because I know they're two of your favourites.
Well, so he's going to be able to start 5 or 6. I mean, that's clearly the strongest group of wide receivers so far in this draft by any team, but it needs some support above it. It is potentially high scoring. I mean, those quarterbacks, if they could just take a small step up and the two running backs that he's got do stay healthy, he's got the potential to be a playoff team. The trouble is that if anything goes wrong above those wide receivers, he could really struggle this year. So it's very interesting. 1 or 2 trades, he could be really in contention. I like the team though, and those wide receivers are going to be very dangerous. Got the potential of putting up some big scores.
Yeah, that's definitely where his strength lies. He's got 2 nice tight ends in Evan Ingram and Noah Fant as well.
Yeah, very strong. So from a catching point of view, and that aspect of his game is very interesting. It's the top part of the draft board. If he could get a quarterback who's potentially better than those 3 with a trade and a running back that can maybe be a backup, this team goes from being...
Darnold will probably be serviceable, won't he?
Yeah, but you want a little bit more than that in this kind of league, just purely because of what you're up against. You are, a lot of teams out there are much better than that in terms of quarterback. So it is going to be tough, but you can definitely angle for one or work an angle in. I like it. I think he's going to miss out on the playoffs this year unless 1 or 2 things break his way. And if they do, he's got a chance, because if he can get a quarterback and a backup running back to go with what he's got a real chance. And I will say this, he's got a wide receiver on that list that's on my bold prediction list for this season.
Yeah,
so
I think I know it's well. I think he might have 2 on there that you like. Actually,
yeah, he has got 2. Yeah.
Dan N, the third Dan, as he's known, or maybe it's the first Dan. I don't know. He's one of the Dans anyway. Another Dan. So he's got Andy Dalton. Obviously, he picks him up for $1. Nick Foles probably $1. Bridgewater, it wasn't much, and obviously Lamar Jackson. He used to be known as Flacco on the thing, but he's been changing it to Lamar because obviously he's a big Ravens fan. Good guy. Good. So he's obviously got one of the best QBs. Yes. So, and he's got Bridgewater and Foles who could be serviceable underneath.
Well, when you've got one of the top 2, you automatically get a great grade. So quarterback-wise, he's in a fabulous position.
He bought a lot of players early and didn't really bother too much with Devy apart from CJ Vidal.
Well, let's see how that's panned out for him in what he's done with his running backs. He's got a decent-sized list of running backs, but are they quality? So let's have a look.
You tell me.
I think David Montgomery, I'm just looking at the names that stand out to me. So David Montgomery will, if that's the floor, which I think it was from Chicago last year, woefully underused and poorly executed a lot of the plays. Some of it's him, some of it's the coach, and some of it's the line. Can only take a step forward. So I quite like that. Alexander Mattison could be huge because if Cook doesn't play, Mattison immediately becomes RB1 worthy. So that's huge. I love Kareem Hunt. I'm not going to lie.
Hunt played half a year, so he got 94 points. So you could be a 180-point, 200-point player.
I'm not going to lie. I mean, Kareem Hunt is really, really good. And I do think he's done well there. So that's 3 potential players that have got, imminent value. There's a lot of bit part players, Kalen Ballard, Burkhead. But Burkhead could be anything. So that's not too bad either. Brian Hill, Justice Hill. I'm not too keen on them because I just think it's very hard to see the road to the starter's job.
Brian Hill. If Gurley goes down, it's between Brian Hill and probably
Ito Smith
and Ezigbo. So he's definitely in the hunt there for being. And he put him to nice games last year when Freeman went down.
But it is a very nice group of running backs. It's not like absolutely perfect where I could give it a top grade of 2.5.
I think he's
But I
maybe
certainly-
one running back short. I mean, Hudson.
but I
but he
will
might just.
give it.
He's got enough depth there. Maybe he'll get through that with the.
But I will
with
give
one
it
of
a
them
solid
hitting.
2. I will give it a solid 2 to go with his 2.5. So far so good. It's looking quite nice. But obviously,
he's got some nice wide receivers. I think he's got Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
Robert Woods, obviously, Tyreek Hill. I mean, they're three top. I mean, John Brown had a good year last year. Paris Campbell's one for the future. Pettis could take a step up again with the Debo news.
Odell Beckham is the kind of expert league's darling to pick up late because he's cheap, and you can kind of understand that. Although his ADP is climbing again. John Brown, as you said, made a great step forward. Quite like that. Paris Campbell in an interesting team. Tyreek Hill, massive opportunity. It's brilliant. Rashad Perryman,
he finished the season really strongly last year for Tampa Bay. So he did. I mean,
so
he looked
a lot
like the player he was touted to be in the first place.
Robert Woods is good as well because he had a poor year last year, but again, that was down to
he didn't
the
have
team
a poor
situation.
year. He had a lot of catches. He just didn't have many touchdowns. So if you take away, say if he had an average year with touchdowns, you're looking 250.
Well, I think he was unlucky. There was a few situations where I just felt, one play had gone slightly differently. The guy could have had a touchdown or it could have been a big chunky yard. So I just feel it was an anomaly year. So for him, probably looking back... But he
still scored over 200 points in this format. So,
Yeah, again, that's a really good list. That's a 2.5 list of wide receivers. I can't really fault it. There's enough depth in there. You can start 4, maybe 5 of them. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I mean, so far, this is another team that's going to be a playoff team. This is very capable.
So he's got 3. He's got 2 decent tight ends, and Tyler Eifert, who's he's a good player, but he's never fit, is he?
Well, I like his Mike Gesicki and Darren Waller mix. I mean, I think the two of them are going to be very, very nice for him. And he's probably only going to want to play 1 a week, but he can match those up. And I think Gesicki could take a big step forward for Miami this year. And Darren Waller he was great. He was your man. He was very good, wasn't he?
Yeah, 200 points there, mate. So,
very,
wasn't even
very
on
good.
people's radars, a lot of people, anyway.
So, good team. Very playoff-bound team, that. So, big chance for him to do well there.
On to our friend David, nice guy.
Lovely guy. Very one of the best drafters, actually, for me.
He is. He's
when it comes to trading, I mean, me and David, we don't have many conversations, but when we do, they're normally quite short, very beautiful. And we normally come to an agreement. Whether I go to him or he comes to me, we can find a deal somewhere. Not many people you can say that about, but he's a really fair guy, and I've got a lot of time for him. Brilliant bloke.
What are you saying, Sean? What are you saying? We have lovely conversations.
We do, but we don't trade very much.
No, we don't.
So that's fair enough. But that's fair enough.
Okay. Let's go to his team then.
So I've given him a big build-up. I hope he delivers. Let's see how he gets on here. Yeah.
Well, you can be the judge of that. So we got Jacoby Brissett, obviously, probably a backup for now. Ben Roethlisberger, he's picked him up very cheap late on. Trubisky, not sure about him. And Jimmy, he's never somebody who puts a lot of stock in quarterbacks. He never puts any value in them. Notice that with him. He builds good teams. But
it's very interesting, actually, this. So let's. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, the arm looks all the way back. And the more reports I'm seeing, the more I'm thinking, it's great. I've got no problem. A year out of the game is not a bad thing for an older quarterback. We know he might be in the last hurrah of, this year or the next is probably going to be the last for Ben, realistically. But I think he can come back in and really, basically go out with a bang, really enjoy the season. And I think Pittsburgh are set for quite a good resurgence. So I like him. Jimmy Garoppolo, talented guy, very interesting quarterback, a lot of potential to grow or take a step back. He's one of those guys who could mature further and become really good.
But he only scored about 20 points less than Carson Wentz last year.
Yeah, but the sneaky pick is Mitch Trubisky. Very underrated. Everybody's down on him. It's ridiculous. You should look at his...
I just traded for Nick Foles, so, I
want to just point something out about Mitch Trubisky, right? I'd just like people to go and look at one stat. Okay, just one stat. Put the stat in and have a look at this. Accuracy. Okay, go and have a look. Everybody rates how bad he is, how poor he's been, and everything else. I want you to have a look at the accuracy. I'm not going to tell you the answer because it is right there if you go away and do some research on it. And you will be shocked at who he beats on accuracy, right?
No, accuracy isn't everything, is he? He's doing really crap short passes.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Look carefully again. Accuracy and plays over 25 yards. Just look carefully. Trust me, Mitch Trubisky is a lot better than people say, and I'm happy they're down on him for this season. And let me tell you, as a quarterback, I don't want him as my number one, of course, and that's not what what David has done here.
I don't think he's going to be Chicago's number one.
I want him as my second, and I want to see what happens. Of course, the clever consensus will have Nick Foles potentially as the guy either starts day one or whatever. Well, that may be so, but Chicago invested a lot of stock in Mitch Trubisky. It's not over for him yet. And
I don't think it's over for him yet. But
there's a lot more to Mitch Trubisky.
He doesn't pass my eye test.
I understand.
Sam Bradford led the league in accuracy and completed passes. It didn't make him any good. He's rubbish. I think Trubisky doesn't. He's never convinced me in any game yet.
I personally think that, that's a good list because you've got an established big starter in Ben.
Oh, he hasn't paid a lot for Trubisky. I'm not having to go David. I mean, it's just my opinion on Trubisky.
Well, I'm just saying, if you want a second quarterback who's cheap as chips, and, you're just thinking of somebody who could do better than they think. I mean, you're probably going to get Mitch in the last round.
I'd rather have Ben than him if we want looking for a cheap redraft player. Right, on to running backs. We'll have to talk, we can talk about Trubisky another time. He's not fantasy relevant. He's rubbish. Not having it. Right,
it's a good grade for David at quarterback.
David invested a lot of money in picks, and he snapped up all this year's picks. So he's got CEH, who you're a big fan of, Jonathan Taylor, who I'm a big fan of, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, and Najee Harris, who's obviously one for the future.
Can only give a maximum score of 2.5, but there are rare exceptions where you just have to say that the guy can start 5 players here. It's excellent. I mean, there's not much to say. I would give a grade of 2 for his quarterbacks. I'm going to give a perfect score for his running backs, but it's a damn fine crop of running backs. I mean, you're going to reap the benefit for several years here. So very interesting. He
put most of his money into that, and that could really pay off in the next season or two, I think. Wide receivers, he didn't put so much money in. He's got AJ Green. Him and me, I think AJ Green, we're still the only believers left that he can do something.
You are the only believers left. You must, other than you and AJ.
But he got him cheap, so well, good luck to him. I was going to bid. There's only me and him really bidding for him, I think, from memory. But he went a bit. I just pulled out at a certain time because I was looking at other options. I was trying to build a young team. But he could be a wide receiver 1 for a sort of year or two. Well, that's what I was thinking.
If I look at those wide receivers he's got, I mean, Antonio Brown could have huge relevance.
Yeah, he got it. He's been doing the same as me, and he's picked up Antonio Brown for either 15th round or later in Dynasty, or for very sort of small amounts in the actually.
I mean, I know that these wide receivers are going to have to be a cobbled list, but he's really only going to look to play 2 of them. He's going to play the maximum amount of running backs, and he's probably going to maybe min-max him with these wide receivers at tight end if required, because that's clearly the strategy.
He's got Tyler Lockett. He's going to play. AJ Green's going to play. Christian Kirk may play. Antonio Brown, if he's got a team, will play, won't he? Because we know how good he is. Sterling Shepard might play.
I like the team a lot. I'm quite impressed with that team. I mean, to be honest, David's done a great job.
He's got 6 tight ends as well. I think they're all cheap options that he's just open.
Hawkinson can take another step forward this year. That's quite interesting. Carl Rudolph probably got him for cheap. That's quite good. Jimmy Graham, serviceable. Jack Doyle, serviceable.
Yeah, they were all $1 players, I think.
So you play one
bid on Jack Doyle. I bid 1 and he outbid me with 2, I think. So
you play one of them. You play a couple of wide receivers, and you play basically all your running backs. You just play all them and put your best quarterback in. That's a playoff team. That's
right. On to our old friend George now. Let's go through his team. So Derek Carr, Tyrod Taylor, Carson Wentz, and Jameis Winston at QB.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty damn solid. I would give it a 2, actually, purely because, you've got pieces that can do better than they appear, and you've got a lot with 4 quarterbacks. You can, take the best matchup of the week. Jameson will likely get a team before the season starts.
He's a big believer in Carson Wentz. I think me and him disagree. I'm not a big believer. I think he fatters to deceive. Maybe he will become more consistent going forwards.
I think he's too injury. My big issue with him is the amount of injuries. Just too many consistent injuries every year to kill off, and that worries me a great deal. He reminds me an awful lot of Tua in that way. That Tua will come in and lose games because of injuries. I just see that happening. I'm not a believer either in Carson Wentz, but I think in terms of a group of 4 quarterbacks, it's very
all right.
serviceable.
I mean, he's probably in the top 10 argument, but
Tyrod Taylor, he's got a role. So
I think he got him for like $1 or on free agency.
Jameson Winston will probably have a team before the season starts. I'm pretty convinced of that. And if he doesn't have one before the season starts, he'll certainly have one quite quickly as the season starts. Injuries will happen this year. So I'm very quietly confident those 4 will pan out to be a big value. I'd give it a grade of 2. Fairly solid. It's not spectacular, but it'll certainly do the job from keeping relevant there at quarterback.
Okay. Looking at these running backs, he's got some very good established players like here. Saquon, obviously, he went for a lot of money. Him and McCaffrey were probably the 2 highest bid-on players, I think. Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon. It's a very nice Sony Michel. Ronald Jones, he still believes in him. And 154 points last year.
Yeah.
He could well kick on again. I mean, it's split between him and Keyshawn Vaughn, probably.
My problems with this running back list is pretty simple. I do believe in Saquon Barkley for this year. So, obviously that's obvious. If you've seen any of our videos, go back and have a look at them. I'm very high on him for this year. So no problem there. I think Melvin Gordon will have a nice year because it's Denver and the kind of team they've got. So again, that seems like a sensible 1-2 punch. I'm not a fan of Leonard Fournette. I think, there's a big injury coming here.
Yeah, but he got 260 points last year. He hasn't got much competition, has he?
He's got no competition, but the truth is that there's a little few things now. The flags are raising high.
Oh, I know. I get that totally.
I do worry. Ronald Jones, we're not sure of the role. Bryce Love, we're not sure of the role. And Sony Michel, there's a lot of doubts hanging over those knees now. I'm hearing some pretty bad reports from one-to-one experts who are working with him.
I don't touch New England running backs anymore.
I'm not happy about his opportunities for this year, and I'm going to be honest. I can say it here in this video because it doesn't matter. Because in general, he's got quite a good group. I can't give it less than a 2 because you've got Saquon Barkley, you've got Melvin Gordon, and as much as I may doubt Leonard Fournette, he's certainly going to start the year. Maybe he has another great year, and there's enough behind this to give it a solid 2. I can't quite give it perfect because I think he needed one more running back for it to be perfect, but it's a good list.
Decent. It's going to be up there. I think Zamir White and Jerry and Ely as well. He's got him from Devy and Terrence Marshall at wide receiver.
It's solid. So he's got a 2 from his quarterbacks, 2 from his running backs, and that's great. Moving into a bigger list at wide receiver. Let's take a look at those.
He's got Cortland Sutton, Amari Cooper. They're the one. Oh, and Chris Godwin, obviously. They're 3 nice receivers there. So he's going to be playing them most weeks, I would have thought.
Alan Lazard is sneaky.
Yeah, he's interesting. He came on quite nicely. Alshon Jeffrey, I'm not a big fan of, but he was cheap.
The big question for Alan Lazard, and it's a gambler's pick, and it's a good one here in the Devy League. Will he be the number 2? And I think he at the moment, if you were betting, you would say he's probably the player that should come through the pack. I mean, but it's a big should. We've seen so many of these.
Just don't know, do you? They say an MVS can take a step forward. Equinamey sent Browns back. They signed Devin Funchess. I've lost you, Sean. I don't know where your face has gone. Oh, you're back. He's got Will Fuller as well.
Somebody just tried to call him.
Oh, you're in demand. Probably David, after he's...
No, it was actually Bill Belichick. He just put a call through. I'm going to have to decline the opportunity.
What about Sony Michel? He's like, what are you saying? So he's got some nice sort of... I mean, you can play with Will Fuller every week because he's got that boom potential, hasn't he? He's got Chris Godwin. We know what he can do. He's going to be great with Brady. Cortland Sutton, very young up-and-coming player. Amari Cooper, wide receiver 1 on a good offense.
It's a solid list. I'm going to give it another 2. So it's a solid list. So far, that's a very good grade out of 3 areas.
And then he's got sort of 4 sort of youngish tight ends that could come on a bit. They're all sort of in the 70s, 80s. Lost you again, Sean, there.
Sorry about that. Somebody's still trying to call me, but I can't answer it. I might, if you're with your blessing, let me just send them a message out because they'll keep trying otherwise.
Yeah, all right. Well, I can go through Mike's team. We can just have a look at this. Mike's become a really hardcore player, actually. And Mike and Mark, who are the brothers Lewis. Although some people have never seen them in the same room.
Right.
A few people are convinced Mike and Mark are the same person, which is quite interesting.
I do apologise about that. Just had to send that message off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
No
so go
so
ahead.
Mike and Mark Lewis, we got the two brothers to finish with. Both become sort of hardcore players in our leagues, which is brilliant because they're both good personalities as well. So good to have
Yes,
around.
they are.
And I know they're both.
And they have come in and they've come in and established what kind of drafters they are.
Well, you can without looking. Then I mean, we are going to look, but before you look, you can decide which one of the brothers had the better draft because I'm sure there's a bit of sibling rivalry there. So let's start with Mike, double or nothing. Josh Allen, who you like?
Yeah, Daniel Jones I like.
Is also quite, he could really take a step forward.
Philip Rivers, yeah, good. Jarrett Stidham. Don't underrate the fact that although Cam Newton's come in, it could be Cam. It could be that Jarrett Stidham ends up mid-season actually taking over. I know it sounds crazy at the moment, but strange things have happened. It's really a really interesting situation in New England now. I don't mind the group, and I think it's very, very strong. It's not quite a 2.5, but it's certainly a 2. So it's a very strong group. No problem with that list. Okay, that's a solid group.
Let's move on to the running backs. We've got James Conner, Austin Eckler, Mark Ingram. They're probably the three that stand out for this year. James White always contributes. Tony Pollard, if anything happens to Zeke, and Reggie Bonifon, if anything happens to McCaffrey. Also interesting.
Oh, I'm not a big fan of this list, this group. I think Austin Eckler could be very useful too.
You like Eckler and Ingram, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I think Ingram's going to be very serviceable.
James Conner, you don't like?
James Conner, I'm really in two minds again. I mean, we've been really good at picking the year that he's great and the year that he's bad. We've done that very well, and I'm still debating, weighing up in my mind whether he's going to have that year to look forward to, or whether it's another step back.
I mean, I know he got injured a bit last year, but he was still outscored by Tariq Cohen, which is
I know, yeah.
I know he's PPR, but
I would give the
James
group
White still got 189 points in this format.
I would have to give the group 2. It's not quite a 2.5 maximum score, and it is closing in on a 1.5 because one injury here, and this group will take a step back quickly. So it's okay.
He's got some really nice looking tight ends. Kenny Golladay, Julio Jones. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy's one for the future. Jalen Reagor. He's got Anthony Miller. Some nice young talent there. He's picked Miller up in a few leagues as well. I quite like Anthony Miller as well. I think he was always one we were quite fond of. He just hasn't reached his potential yet. Maybe this is a year.
This team, to be honest, to Mike, I'm kind of like, I could see, running back starters I see on it 2, maybe 3, maybe. And that's a big if because there's a lot that can go wrong. Wide receivers, I sort of see 2 or 3 that I kind of like that are solid enough that you would start. And then there's a few that might.
Well, he's got Julio and Golladay. Got to be up there with 2 of the best.
This team at the moment sits, for me, very simply, looking at all the other teams that are in this Devy League, it's a 6-win team. It's as close to the playoffs.
I mean, before you say that, though, look at his tight ends, because Kittle's almost like another wide receiver. I mean, he could be like a wide receiver 1, couldn't he?
Yeah, it's a strong group of tight ends. I've no problem giving a maximum grade of 2, but I think it's other areas where it's going to be critical for his chances. So he needs a player to step up, and then I think he's a playoff team. If somebody in that group, and it could come from an unusual area.
I mean, it could come from Jeudy or Anthony Miller. I mean, they could easily step up, or even Sanu at New England. We don't know.
Absolutely. If one of those guys is on track for a 200-point PPR season this year, right? So if Jeudy came in and had a 200-point PPR year, or somebody that you just didn't expect, or Larry Fitzgerald had a resurgent and went over 200 plus, because he didn't do too bad last year, 168 is not bad. Then this team is right in that playoff area. But without that and an injury, it could definitely sink away. So it's a little interesting. I'm a little concerned for it. I would give it 6 wins. That's where I'd sit it at the moment. I think it needs something to go with it to make it where I'd feel, and I'm sure he'd feel more comfortable if he had 1 or 2 players. Like in a lot of cases, often.
Oh no, Mike! He'll be trading like there's no tomorrow, so his team will look very different come start.
I'm sure. But at the moment, I just think if he could get 1 or 2 players here for a little bit more depth, and that was solid starters, or at least had the potential, yeah, he's in that playoff area at the moment. He's just a step away from some of the other teams you've got in this league.
Okay, let's move on to his brother Mark then, and the final team in the breakdown. He's got Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers and Minshew at QB, so he's quite strong there.
I don't like it.
What? You don't like Deshaun Watson?
I don't like this mixture.
What? I do.
I don't like this mixture. Look, as much as I like Deshaun Watson in redraft for a season, I have huge red flags with him, as you know. It's a big issue for me for this season. Aaron Rodgers is playing with a chip on his shoulder, but because you're playing with a chip on your shoulder does not mean that they're not going to do things to you. The coach can pull you from a game.
He's not going to pull Aaron Rodgers from a game. He won't last 5 minutes if he does that.
You don't think, with the way Green Bay are, that there's things that could happen this year where, if he has a tantrum on the sideline, the coach isn't going to pull him? There's a lot that could happen.
No, they won't. He's too big. It's like when Rude Hollett tried to get rid of Alan Shearer. They weren't having it.
There's a lot.
He is basically everything that Green Bay are about. He has been for years.
I think it's a 2. It's good. It's really good. It's nearly perfection, but it's not there. And the reason I can't give it more, and I'm more worried about this
he picked up Aaron Rodgers fairly cheap as well. I think
sure he did.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the group. I could see that the team falls onto the hands of Aaron Rodgers because Deshaun gets injured, or maybe Aaron Rodgers has a problem. There's so many what ifs in that group. There's something worrying.
He's got some. Moving on to his running backs, I think he's got some very strong running back. Derrick Henry.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, very
David
good.
Johnson, who could be very good at least for a year or two.
Yeah,
Aaron
very
Jones,
good.
300 points in this format last time.
Yeah.
Philip Lindsay probably still got a roll. Marlon Mack still got a roll, probably. He kicked these guys up pretty cheap. Damian Williams, he could still be the starter there, or at least 50% share in a good offense. Justin Jackson.
I think if I'm looking at those running backs, because there's a little bit of depth, he's not going to start more than probably 3 of them at any one time, in my view.
He's going to start. He's definitely going to start Derrick Henry, David Johnson, Aaron Jones. And he definitely could start Philip Lindsay, Marlon Mack, Damian Williams as well.
I think you wouldn't want to start those, if you were being honest. You'd want to have those as auxiliary pieces where you've plugged them in, and depending on how the season starts.
Remember, this is a 10-team roster, so, you could well be starting people like that. I think, and be quite happy about it. Marlon Mack could still have a pretty decent year, I think. Right, on to his receivers. Devontae Adams, obviously, and I've said Cooper Kupp. Darius Slayton, Adam Thielen, Mike Williams. it's
Emmanuel
a strong
Sanders.
team. I think this is a very strong team.
It's a 2.5. You could start 5 of them. That's really strong. If you play a conservative game with your running backs, then add your wide receivers in. That's very, very strong. Aaron Rodgers will still be very relevant. It's Aaron Rodgers, for God's sake. But it's just there's issues in that team. That's all I'm trying to point out. There are some issues there.
I get that.
And I'm worried.
The draft was weird.
I haven't given it a low grade because you've got Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson arguably could be top 5 quarterbacks, so he's got to give it at least a 2. It could easily be a 2.5 if both of them blow up the year, so he could be sitting very nicely there. He's got a good group of running backs. I think he can start 3 comfortably, but his wide receivers he can start 5. He's in a great situation there, and he's backed it up with a nice list of tight ends where you can see who's doing well and put them in. Tyler Higbee, very much the darling of expert leagues, and if they're right, great. So I think I'm afraid I'll give the bragging rights to Mark, and I think his team is a playoff team. So I think
Mark and Dan N, I think probably have the strongest teams for this year. Yeah. With it being Devy, it's going to be interesting to see, how it develops. Maybe we can revisit this.
I'd like to revisit all the leagues to have a look back and see how they actually did. Did they outperform their position and why? And, what made them outperform their position? Did we just get it horrifically wrong, or did they just make great trades? And what kind of pieces did they add?
Yeah, or, injuries affect everything, don't they? There's always
injuries. And I think this year we'll see a lot of those. Some good teams, some interesting ones, some teams that are a slight step away. But, very interesting. Very interesting. I think, Mark there, great team. Real chance.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, we're coming then to the part 2 of our video. So if you've enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. If and you want to see more, subscribe. We've got loads more coming. Thanks to Sean for his breakdown of all the teams.
That's all right. I'm sorry if I've annoyed any drafters. Well, just take it out on me during another draft. Thanks very much.
Well, I think you're just, being honest, aren't you? It's not personal, is it? Well,
No.
I mean, you slated my team. That was,
Look how hard I am on my own teams. I mean, crikey, I'll rip them apart.
Not as much as I'll rip them apart. I'll tell you that.
Even when they're doing well, I'm still quite tough on them. So
not as tough as I'm going to be.
I know that.
Slaughter them. Right. Okay.
We
anyway.
do that before I've even played a game.
Before you've even drafted most of the time.
What are you doing taking Michael Thomas? I've heard all of this before.
Yeah, rubbish. Anyway, rubbish. Michael Thomas never catches anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other than the cold.
All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.
Take care. Thanks very much.
All right. Bye.